Hey guys, my name is Christina Bergey, and I use computers to study monkeys. This is one in a series of tutorials teaching the basics of computer programming and bioinformatics. I found myself teaching the same topics repeatedly, and thought it would be logical to put them in a format that could be watched whenever by whomever. The topic for this lecture is basic Unix commands. Don't panic if you don't even know what Unix means. This lesson requires no prior knowledge. Working with the system seems difficult at first, but a little knowledge goes a long way to making your computing life better, and these skills are essential to programming. Most interaction with the computer is done via the operating system. Examples of operating systems include Windows, Mac, and Linux. The operating system starts automatically when you boot up your computer. It controls the programs that run, and it handles files. You interface with the operating system mainly with the mouse. An operating system offers a graphical user interface, abbreviated as GUI and pronounced GUI. That just means there are visual items on the screen, like buttons, windows, and icons, that you click to make a program do something. What we'll learn about today is the antithesis of a GUI, the command line interface. In the pre-GUI days, all instructions were typed to a computer via the command line. Today, by exploring Unix, we'll be heading back to the medieval computing days when you typed what you wanted your computer to do, and people looked like this, or this. Sometimes using the command line is actually easier and faster than using the GUI. Let's first take a step back to learn about the computer's file system. File names have two parts, a name and an extension, separated by a dot. The operating system generally knows which program opens which type of file. This file is a JPEG, a picture file, that will open with an image viewing program by default. Files are organized into folders or directories. A file's path is like an address for a file. It directs a computer to where a file lives. Files live in folders which live in other folders, and so on. It's organized like a tree with multiple branches. The uppermost directory is the root directory, like the root of a tree. Every other file is a descendant or child of this. In Unix or Mac, the root is represented by a slash. In Windows, the root is the name of the drive. Here are some files on my computer, organized into folders. This text file, cheesewhiz.txt, lives inside the food folder, which in turn is in the bad things folder. Assuming that the bad things folder is located in the root directory, the path to cheesewhiz.txt is therefore /badthings/food/cheesewhiz.txt. This is known as an absolute path, because it's the full path to the file, starting with the root directory. It's important to understand the difference between absolute and relative paths. Here's an illustration of the difference between the two. You're in downtown New York City when a tourist slowly walks towards you and slowly asks if y'all know where the Times Square is. You could respond by saying, the universe, Milky Way galaxy, the Orion Cygnus arm, the solar system, planet Earth, Northern Hemisphere, North America, United States, Eastern Seaboard, New York State, New York City, Manhattan, Midtown, Broadway, and 7th Avenue at 42nd Street. Our stereotypical tourist would back away slowly, convinced you're one of those crazy New Yorkers they read about. A sane person would just say, up in Midtown, Broadway and 7th Ave at 42nd. All the other location data is irrelevant, because you're already there. Same idea with paths. You can use relative paths and specify a destination from your current whereabouts. It makes things easier. The full path to darthvader.txt is /badthings/people/fictional/darthvader.txt. This is the absolute path. It works no matter where you are on the drive. But if you're already in the people directory, the path to Darth Vader from your current location is just fictional/darthvader.txt. This is the relative path. It's relative to your current location. Okay, back to our folders. There's a special path convention called dot dot. Dot dot represents the directory one level up, also known as the parent directory. So if we're in the fictional folder, dot dot represents people. People is the parent directory. If we're in the fictional folder and want to reference mullets.txt, its relative path is dot dot /hairstyles/mullets.txt. The first dot dot gets you up to fictional's parent directory, people. The second dot dot gets you up to the bad things directory. From there we go down into hairstyles where mullets.txt resides. Now that you're an expert on files and where they live, you know enough to learn our first 6 Unix commands. Let's start Unix. If you're on a Mac or a Linux machine, you use the program terminal to enter Unix commands. The terminal application is located at applications/utilities/terminal on a Mac. On most Linux machines, the terminal program is under the accessories tab. If you're in Windows and want to run Unix, you'll need to download a program such as Cygwin. Installing that is not covered in this tutorial, but you should be able to figure it out with some Googling. Once you open Terminal, you should see a screen that looks something like this. This is the Unix shell or command prompt. Let's dissect the bottom line. Before the colon is the name of your computer. Mine's name is Procolobus. Then there's a colon, and then our current location, which for me right now is that squiggly line. Then there's my username, which is Bergey, and a $sign, demarcating the end of the prompt. After that is a box, the cursor, waiting patiently for me to start typing commands. Don't panic if your prompt looks a bit different than mine. It's no big deal. Let's type our first Unix command. Make sure terminal is the active window and type pwd and then hit return. Pwd stands for print working directory, and the output is the current location. This is actually the path to my home directory, which is also what that squiggly line in the prompt represents. Your output is probably simpler than mine. When it's done writing the output, it gives you a new prompt, ready for the next command. pwd tells us which folder we're in. The next command shows us what's in the current folder. Type ls into your terminal and press enter. ls is the list command, and it lists all files in the current directory. This directory is a bit cluttered. ls space -l gives the info in long format. The -l is a flag that alters the way the ls command runs. Running the ls command this way gives info on the file owner, the file size, the last modified date, etc. Okay, so now we know how to look around and find out where we are. Now it's time to move. You move around in Unix with the cd command. cd stands for change directory. Let's say I want to move to the root directory. Remember, root in Unix is represented by a slash. To change to the root directory, I type cd space / and then return. Now a quick pwd shows that we're in the root directory, and an ls shows the folders and files located here. Now say I want to move into the bad things folder, which is located here. I type cd space bad things and then return. Another ls command reveals the folders and files located here. Okay, audience participation time. What command should I type to go into the people folder? Just shout it at your screen, Dora the Explorer style. Sí, muy bien hecho. Se de espacio people. Okay, here's a toughie. We're now in people. How do we get back up to the parent folder, back up into bad things folder? That's our old friend ... cd space ... will move us up one level. If you ever get lost wandering around in your file system, scared and lonely, simply type cd and then return with no other arguments. cd alone will always bring you back to the home directory. I'm going to head back into that directory of bad things, cd/bad things. Now say I want to create a folder, as I've encountered a new class of bad stuff to add to my improbable example file tree. I want to create a folder for insects. The command to do so is the make directory command, mkdir. Type make directory space and then the name of the folder you want to create, make directory insects, then return. Giving the ls command reveals that a new directory has been created. Okay, still with me? Another common task is moving files. Say we have a file, mosquitoes.txt, that we want to move into insects. The move command takes two inputs. The first is the file that you want to move. The second is where you want the file to go. Typing mv space mosquitoes.txt space insects moves mosquitoes into the insects folder. Now, let's change directory into the insects folder and type ls. Sure enough, there it is. Next up is copying files. The command to copy a file is cp, copy. This command also takes two inputs. The first is the file to be copied, and the second is its new name. If we want to make a copy of the mosquitoes file and call it praying mantis, the command would be cp mosquitoes.txt space praying mantis.txt. How about copying a whole directory? Let's move up one level to try. If we want to make a copy of people, the cp command alone won't work. It gives an error. People is a directory, not copied, it says. If you want to copy a directory, you need to add the -r flag. R stands for recursive, and it means that the copy program will go through and duplicate all the contents of the folder you're trying to move. The final task we're going to learn today is deleting things. The command is remove, abbreviated rm. Let's get rid of Farmville by entering rm farmville.txt. Just like with the copy command, you remove a folder with the -r flag. Now you have to be careful about deleting things. Obviously you don't want to accidentally delete important files, and there is no Control-Z or Edit Undo in Unix. What's done is done. The safer way to use remove is with the I flag. Using rm-i will prompt you to make sure you actually want to go through with the delete. Type no or yes, or n or y if you're a lazy typist, in response to the question. This concludes the lesson on basic Unix commands. To recap, we learned about GUIs and command line interfaces, the difference between absolute and relative paths, how to start terminal, and the parts of a Unix command. In the second half of the lesson, we learned a bunch of Unix commands: pwd, list, ls-l, change directory, make directory, move, copy, and remove. We also learned about the R flag to apply a command to an entire directory, and the I flag for remove, that prompts you before you go and delete that movie file of your baby's first steps. Not too bad for under 10 minutes, eh?